badass business owners. Today I want to talk about sales versus profits and why so many people get them confused. Now, I don't mean that you think sales equals profits per se, because I do know that you understand that there are bills that have to be paid. You have to pay your cost of goods and you have to pay your expenses, and that is the difference between your profits and sales. But what I'm talking about is what happens many, many times between the ears, and when we're talking to other business owners, as well as when we're looking at other information. For example, let's just say that you do $200,000 a year in your business, and one of your competitors, you find out, does $300,000. And all of a sudden we start getting into this, oh, me versus them, and they're making so much more money, and I don't understand how they can have so much more in sales than I do when I do X, Y, and Z better. Well, you need to stop, because just because they make $300,000 in sales, it does not mean that they are making more money than you are. For example, what a lot of people do is they will have these lowball prices, and everybody goes, oh, they're undercutting my pricing and I can't keep up with them, and they're doing more sales because it's a lower price. Okay, well, that lower price is going to impact their bottom line, right? Because once they take off their cost of goods and they take off their expenses, it's going to hurt their profitability. Now, what might be happening is, believe it or not, you at your pricing and what you're doing at $200,000 actually is probably making more money than their $300,000 with their lowball pricing. A lot of times people don't understand. It's not you. When you get into this comparison, you've got to stop comparing the top line. You got to quit comparing the sales, because at the end of the day, this is a business and it's all about the profits of the business, not the sales of the business. Now, the ultimate goal is to get a nice, good, healthy profitability line and grow your sales from there. This way you can make some good profit as you grow the business. But way too many people chase the sales, and what they do is they sacrifice the profitability. I'd rather you grow slow with a good, strong, solid profitability line than try to grow real fast or try to compete against competitors that just aren't making any money. So please, whatever you do, stop getting all hung up on what somebody makes. Oh, they're $1 million a year business. Great. They might only be making 10% bottom line to get that $1 million. And if you're making a 30% bottom line, guess what? You're making some good money. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand 30% of a low number. Sometimes you want to go after the big number with on 10%. I'm not saying there's not a time and place for that. But for the vast majority of small business owners, that's not the game that you're into. That's something that happens as you get to play with the big dogs, because you're really big box retailers and really big companies. And even the folks that are doing service-based businesses on a large scale, they're going to have a lower profitability. And the reason is because they carry such a high payroll. And that's actually where most of you mess up, because when you are a solopreneur looking at it for just you fail to look at your labor hours the right way, because you kind of lump them all together. And that's one of the things I want to kind of tie into this, because we want to think about profitability. And when you're sitting there and you're saying, oh, my business did $45,000 in profits last year. Did it? And I'm going to show you how some people, this is why when they sit down, for example, when they sit down and I coach with them, that they're really disappointed to find out that they did not make $45,000 in their business. As a laborer, they made $45,000, but as a business owner, they did not. So let's just say you made $45,000 in profit last year, which, by the way, is the average that most small business owners make. Now, if we had a salary of $45,000, that's pretty darn good. Okay, so I'm not knocking the $45,000 that you made, but I want to make sure that you really understand where that came from. All right, so you're like, yeah, I did $200,000 in sales and I made $45,000. Okay, but as an employee, let's just say you work 40 hours a week. I know you guys work more. We'll come back to that in a minute. Let's just say that you give yourself a fair wage at $20 an hour. So $20 times 40 hours, and we'll say that you work 51 weeks. You take 1 week of vacation. That's going to come out to $40,800. So as a laborer, as an employee in the business, technically you made $40,000, almost $41,000, which means the business's actual profit that paid you was only $4,200. All right. Now, not necessarily bad, but $4,200 is a much smaller hey, I'm a business owner, I made $4,200. Now, here's the hard part. If you actually divide it out by the number of hours you work in your business, now let's just say you're working 70 hours a week on your business, but 10 of those hours a week you're working as a business owner, and that's where you're getting paid as the business. So you're spending 70 hours a week working in the business, and 10 of those hours is working on the business. So really you're working 60 hours. Did you know that if you take 60 hours times the 20, it actually comes out to $61,000? But remember, you only made 45 in the business. So the reality is you actually were losing money if you were to pay yourself a fair wage for the hours that you work in the business. Now, I know that gets really confusing on a podcast, and I apologize for that, but I want to start getting people to think a little bit differently when you start talking about the sales and the profits in your business, because we get so hung up on the wrong numbers, and we say, oh, if I could only make $300,000, I would be successful. Well, you are successful. You've created a really good, solid job for yourself, but you've got to make sure that you know those business numbers so you can say, hey, this is the amount of money I'm spending on the labor piece of the business, and this is what I'm making as a business owner. And when you're comparing yourself to these other businesses, remember, they've got employees that they are paying that same $20 an hour to. So their profitability is being eaten up by the hours that they're paying from an employee side. So the owner might still be working in the business, so they've got some of that money, and then they've got employees they've hired that's got some of that money. So at the end of the day, you guys might have very comparable profitability lines, even though they're doing more in sales. It's because they have additional employees that they have to pay for, and maybe more expenses because they have to carry an extra truck, extra equipment, whatever the case may be. At the end of the day, folks, my main thing that I want to do is I want to make sure that you don't, when you're talking about other businesses, that you stop thinking about necessarily what their top line is and start really looking at each business and wondering more and being more curious about what's their profitability. And you can play a game and you can kind of jot some stuff out and try to figure out what they're probably taking home, because they may not be making more money than you. They may not be more successful than you. And if you know that they're underpricing themselves, for example, or they're using a higher end product, then you know their product costs are higher. Play with some numbers, because I think that if you stop getting hung up on the sales line and start really looking at the fact of what is their profitability line, now you've got something to really compare to and to aspire to beat and to be better than, or whatever the case may be. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to get hung up every time you hear someone's sales. If I hear someone did $1 million in sales, I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Clap, clap, clap. But what was their profitability? Because there's a lot of big businesses that are no longer in business, and they did millions and millions of dollars a year. And the reason they're no longer in business is they couldn't make that profitability line work. They were losing money. At the time Blockbuster went out of business, we can sit there and dissect why they went out of business. They didn't stay ahead of digital, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, even when they closed up shop, they were still doing millions and millions and millions of dollars. But the problem was they did not have the profit to cover their expenses and everything that was going on. So sales does not mean everything. It is a piece of the calculation. Sales minus cost of goods minus expenses equals profits. At the end of the day, it's all about those profits, baby. It's not about necessarily those sales. So please make sure that whenever you're having a whataboutism and you're comparing yourself, or you're comparing different companies, or you're looking at different things, applaud the sales. That's awesome. That's amazing. But please make sure that you're focused on, at the bottom line, what is it? And make sure that when you're comparing yours, that you're making sure that you back out the employee time of what your hours, how much money you made being an employee in your business. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to write 2 different checks, although a lot of people can do that. It just means you need to account for the money that you made as an employee versus the money that you made as a business owner to get to the root of what your actual profit is. I have some videos that I talk about this and actually do use some examples over on the YouTube channel. So if you really want to start visualizing and getting a better handle on this, please make sure you check out the Badass Business Owner YouTube channel. Like I said, I do some breakdowns to make it a little bit easier for you. But in the meantime, please make sure that you are on top of this. All right, with that, I'm starting to ramble, so I know what that means. That means, Tammy, it's time for you to go. I know, don't cry. I'll be back, I promise. But meanwhile, please make sure that you are not getting hung up on sales. Make sure you're going sales minus cost of goods minus expenses equals those profits. Focus your energy on the right things. And at the end of the day, this is a business about making money at the end of the day, which you keep and put in your pocket, keep in the business to reinvest. That's what it's all about, not necessarily that top line. That top line's nice, but only if it turns into profits. With that, I'm out of here. I'll talk to you on the next episode. Bye for now. Hey, badass business owner, before you go, as you know, I'm a huge believer in you knowing your business numbers. After all, it isn't about how much you sell. It's about what you keep. And the best way to grow your profits is to start diving in and understanding those business numbers. To help you on this journey, I have created the Know Your Business Numbers course. We will walk through how to read your profit and loss statement. You'll learn the key calculations that'll help ensure that you're making a healthy profit on all of your products or services, plus a ton of other good stuff that'll help you learn how to use those business numbers to create even more sales and profits. Just check out the link below in the show notes or visit knowyourbusinessnumberscourse.com. So if you're ready to increase those profits, it's time you start diving into your business numbers.